Hi everyone, and welcome back to Maths and Physics assignments. Today's lesson, or this lesson, is looking at the second exam question. We test reduction formula via special angles, right? So here's the 5 problems I'll be working through. You can attempt to answer them. Sine 210 cos 400 divided by sine negative 50 cos 120. Etc. As I said, you can pause and attempt, but that's what I'm solving. So you need to solve these problems, see where you go wrong, and then use what I've done to solve it so that you can start fixing your errors and doing them over and over. If you can do them 5 times correctly without making an error, that means you know it. Right? So number 1, simplify sine 210 cos 400, sine negative 50 cos 120. So 210 can be written as 180 plus 30. Cos 400, angle greater than 360, we say 360 plus 40. Sine negative angle falls in the fourth quadrant. The fourth quadrant sine is negative, so it becomes negative sine 50. And 120 is the same as saying 180 minus 60. So 180 plus 30 falls in the third quadrant where sine is negative, so that becomes negative sine 30 degrees. 360 plus 40 is in the first quadrant where everything is positive, so that stays cos 40. Then negative sine 50, I can write as 90 minus 40. The reason then I make it cos. So 90 minus 40 would then give me negative cos 40 degrees. And there, cos 180 minus 60, second quadrant becomes negative cos 60. From there, negative divided by negative is positive, right? Cos 40 and cos 40 cancels. I'm still left with a negative at the bottom. Or I can say negative times negative is positive and leave that negative on the top. So sine 30 here would be negative half. Cos 60 would be half. Negative divided by positive gives me negative. Half divided by half then becomes 1. Let's look at problem number 2. We have sine negative 10, sine 240, 10 squared 350, sine negative 225, cos 440, and cos 135. So we literally give you 1 mark for each correct reduction. So sine negative 10 would give me negative sine 10 degrees. 180 or 240 is 180 plus 60. 10 squared 315 gives me 360 minus 45, but remember the square is outside. Negative 225, I take the negative angle as being in the fourth quadrant, and I'm left with 180 plus 45. Right? Cos 440 is the same as 360 plus 80. Cos 135 would give me cos 180 minus 45. So therefore 10 degrees, I can say 90 minus 80. Which falls in the first quadrant, but sine becomes cos, so that would give me then negative cos 80. Sine 180 plus 60 falls in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, sine is negative, so that becomes negative sine 60. 360 minus 45 is in the fourth quadrant where tan is negative, so that becomes negative tan 45 squared. 180 plus 45 is in the third quadrant. The third quadrant sine is negative, but negative times negative becomes positive sine 45. 360 plus 80 is in the first quadrant where everything is positive, so that simply gives me cos 80 degrees. And 180 minus 45 gives me negative cos 45. So you see, because I have a cos 80 on the top, I've changed that to cos 80. So 90 with sine. Change the sign to negative cos 80 because it's in the first quadrant. 180 plus 60 is third quadrant, sine becomes negative, so negative sine 60. Negative times negative become positive, so that's 10 squared 45. They have sine 45, cos 80, and negative cos 45. So generally, if I have an angle that's not a special angle, it must cancel with something else. So there you see cos 80 and cos 80 cancels. Negative times negative is positive, so I make the whole top line positive. Sine 60 gives me square root 3 over 2. and tan 45 is 1, which gives me 1 squared. Sine 45 is 1 over square root 2 times negative cos 45, which gives me negative 1 over square root 2. So on top I have square root 3 over 2. Division I change to multiplication. Remember, 1 times 1 is 1. Square root 2 times square root 2 is 2. Negative times positive, negative. If I flip that around, becomes negative 2 over 1. 2 and 2 cancels. And I'm left with negative square root 3. So hope you follow the process. Let's go to the third problem here. So cos negative 225 sine 135 plus sine 330 divided by tan 225. So negative angle, fourth quadrant, so cos is positive. Now because it's positive 225, I can write it as 180 plus 45. That gives me 225. For 135, 180 minus 45 would give me 135. 330, 360 minus 30 would give me 330, and 225, 180 plus 45. So as you can see, 45, 45, 30, 45, they're all special angles. Alright, so 180 plus 45, third quadrant, cos is negative, so it becomes negative cos 45. 180 minus 45 is in the second quadrant where sine is positive, so that becomes positive sine 45 degrees, plus 360 minus 30 is in the fourth quadrant where sine is negative, so that becomes negative sine 30 degrees. And tan 180 plus 45 falls in the third quadrant where tan is positive, tan 45. Negative cos 45 gives me negative 1 over square root 2 times sine 45, which is 1 over square root 2, minus sine 30, which is half, and tan 45 divided by 1. So anything divided by 1 stays the same. So there, negative 1 times 1 gives me negative 1. Square root 2 times square root 2 gives me 2. So that gives me negative half minus half. Half plus half is 1. So therefore that becomes negative 1. Right? Problem number 4. Alright, so simplify, given sine 570 plus cos 240 minus tan 135. So there we have one angle bigger than 360, so I can say 360 plus 210. 240 is the same as saying 180 plus 60, and 135 is the same as saying 180 minus 45. For tan in general, we use 180 minus or 180 plus or 360 minus, right? No 90, no 270. So from there, 360 plus 210 would simply give me sine 210. And 210 is the same as saying 180 plus 30 gives me 210. 180 plus 60 falls in the third quadrant where cos is negative, so therefore it becomes negative cos 60 degrees. 180 minus 45 is in the second quadrant where tan is negative. Negative times negative become positive. I'm left with tan 45. Sine 180 plus 30 falls in the third quadrant where sine is negative, so therefore it becomes negative sine 30 minus cos 60 and tan 45, which is simply 1. Sine 30 is half, so that becomes negative half. Cos 60 is half, that becomes negative half. Negative half gives me minus 1 plus 1, which then gives me 0. Alright. Problem number 5. We have tan 315 minus cos 1020 degrees divided by sine 150 plus tan negative 135. So 315, 360 minus 45 would give me 315. Because that's greater than 360, I can remove 360 from it twice. So 1020 minus 720 gives me 300 degrees. 150 is the same as saying 180 minus 30 degrees. And negative angle in the fourth quadrant becomes negative tan 135. 360 minus fourth quadrant, so tan becomes negative tan 45. 300, 360 minus 60, which is in the fourth quadrant. 180 minus 30, second quadrant, so simply becomes sine 30, it stays positive. And 135 becomes 180 minus 45. So tan 45 is 1, so minus 1. 360 minus fourth quadrant, so that stays positive, so it becomes cos 60. Positive times negative stays negative. Sine 30 is half. And 180 minus 45 falls in the second quadrant, where tan is negative. Negative times negative gives me positive tan 45. So that gives me now minus 1 minus cos of 60, which is half. Bottom have half plus tan 45, which is 1. So that gives me negative 1.5 plus 1.5 dividing the 2. Negative divided by positive is negative. Anything divided by itself gives me 1. Hope you enjoyed the lesson. Please remember to like and subscribe. God bless. Wish you nothing but the best. Bye.